Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to In-Depth Perceptions. It seems about time to make a video regarding this coronavirus or COVID-19 fear epidemic that is sweeping the globe. Yes, there is a virus. Yes, it is harmful for some people. But we need to question the measures of control that are being implemented currently to stop the spread of this virus. Now, I'm not here saying that measures shouldn't be taken, that action shouldn't be taken in order to prepare yourself or in order to deal with a virus like this. But we really have to question the government's response to this, and we really have to question how we enable a government response like this. And to be honest, in this video, we're going to cut through all the bullshit and get straight to the point. We're going to get straight to what is driving this. We're going to get straight to what is taking over people's minds, essentially, which is fear, panic, and worry. The uncertainty for many people is a heavy burden to carry. But we need to look at ourselves honestly to see why this is all happening. Because it's easy to point fingers, it's easy to blame, it's easy to judge, but we must look deep within ourselves and see the underlying substructure of our minds which enables these types of actions to take place. Restrictions of personal freedom, restrictions of travel, self-quarantining. I just saw that people in Italy are being arrested for disobeying the decree by the government. This is all for public safety. It's all out of the interest of public safety, so we're told. But unfortunately, when you give up freedom, you never get security in return. And history shows this time and time and time and time again. But if you've been following my channel for any length of time, you'll see that we're gonna really look deep at this, and we're gonna scratch below the surface of all of this. We're gonna scratch below the surface of the governments. We're gonna scratch below the surface of this pandemic and see what's really driving it. Again, cutting through all the bullshit, we can see one thing that's driving it. It's fear. So we have to tackle the question of what is fear. Not is, are you afraid of the coronavirus or not? Some people say, I'm not afraid of it. Some people will say, I'm worried about it. But we want to tackle all of the elements of fear, all of the pieces of fear. Because fear in itself is one movement. People may have fears of different things, but it's still fear. And fear breeds chaos. And if we know from our good friends, the Romans, and their motto, order out of chaos, and you turn that on its head and actually look at what that means, a deep insight into the human mind can be gained and how it's structured and organized. Because if we look at what's going on in society and the draconian measures that are now being taken place, the restrictions of travel, the quarantining, what happened in China. It's all driven by fear. And fear is nothing but thoughts. Thoughts projected out into the world. Your thought is a material thing, which is why when you look out into the world, you can see that thought has constructed this world. But human thought exists in duality. Human thought exists compartmentalized and fractured. Different fragments of thought, all competing and measuring against each other. This breeds conflict. Conflict breeds chaos. Chaos breeds fear. And fear breeds totalitarian measures in society. This is thought. Thought is locking down borders right now. Thought is taking draconian measures in the so-called public interest. Some people may want to know, what does thought have anything to do with this? But if you haven't looked at thought deeply and observed it, and observed the structure of it and the nature of it, then it's very hard to see what's going on. But maybe we can use this crisis as an illustration on what thought actually does, which is, we have a crisis, we have a problem, we have fear, and we have chaos that have been bubbling in society. Now that fear and chaos are thoughts. What about toilet paper? What about meat? What about food? What about this? What about that? All this uncertainty, constant, driving fear. What if I die? What if my loved ones die? What if? This constant psychological noise going on, which is projected out into the physical world and is constructing it as we speak. Now, the powers that shouldn't be, the people who are actually in control of this planet and understand how to manipulate the human mind and understand how to push people in a certain direction, understand that if you can breed enough fear in people to get them to think and then act in panicked and disorderly ways, then the order that they will eventually be begging for is born from disorder. And from disorder, you can never have order. Does that make any sense to people? Can people actually see that? Can people actually see that a disorderly and a chaotic mind, which is the collective human mind, can never implement order? Because itself is disorder. And that disorder itself breeds chaos. So we can look at our society right now. We can look at it and see the disorderly and dysfunctional way it operates. Some people argue our society is highly ordered and sophisticated. And yeah, it is sophisticated. And then on the surface, it looks orderly. People are clean. There's a 9-to-5 work schedule. Garbage gets picked up. The same old nonsense continues to happen. But when you scratch the surface of society, meaning you scratch the surface of yourself because you are society and society is you, there's no separation between the two, then you'll see the absolute chaos that lurks below this thin veil of what we call order. And if you're in positions of power and you're in positions of control, all you have to do is knock over one domino. Because that domino will knock over another domino, will knock over another domino. Especially if you know how people react to the first domino being knocked over, which is in total fear, which is in total chaos, essentially. So from that chaos, people will clamor and beg for order, and they will never, ever achieve order or see it, because that order in which they seek is born from chaos and born from disorder. Can people see that? This is a great example in our society to look at and see it in action. People being quarantined in their house, countries getting shut down, that's not order. That's conformity, and conformity is, by very definition, disorder. Because if you try to conform, you're instinctively being disorderly. I wonder if people actually can grasp that and actually see it in their own life and in society, their inner world and outer world. So we have to look at fear, because this is the driving factor of all of this. And people are afraid to die, people are afraid to lose their house, people are afraid of not eating, people are afraid of all sorts of things. And people can sit there and argue these are logical fears. It's normal to have these fears. I question that, because I question what fear is. You can't run from fear. You can't control fear. You can't suppress it. You have no choice but to be with fear, because fear is you if you feel fearful. There's no separation between you and the fear. There's no division between you and the fear. But many people live in this separated mind where fear is something that we need to control, we need to suppress, we need to get away from. When in reality, that just generates more fear, because you're not actually sitting, facing it, looking at it in its whole and complete form. And then when one sees that, there's an instant transformation where stepping back from the fear and realizing that that fear is not you. It is not you in the sense that you don't identify with it. It is you if you identify with it. So, us humans have a long way to go, it seems, with coming to terms with all of this. But if we're honest with ourselves, and we can look at this situation and look and see what's driving it, we may be able to come to a deeper understanding of who we actually are. Which, if you've been following the channel for any length of time, and you've seen some of the last videos that one has posted, this is fear. This is what is creating division in society. The human mind and the identification with all the thoughts that we have. All the opinions that we have, the beliefs that we have, the fears that we have. That identification, that trap of duality which this society seeks to pull us into, or I should say this control and manipulation of society seeks to pull us into, to separate ourselves from everything else and everybody else and everyone else. So who knows, maybe this coronavirus will help show people what actually matters in life, which is community, which is each other. And we can move beyond the fear and the disorder that fear creates. Because the would-be rulers of society, the powers that shouldn't be, whatever you want to call them, they operate on a modus operandi of order out of chaos. And they understand that the disorderly mind creates society. The disorderly inner state of being, the disorderly mind, whatever you want to call it, manifests in the physical world, is a reflection of our states of being. And the order in which they seek can never actually be order, because it is born out of chaos. And chaos and destruction and slavery and death is what this system breeds and wants. So if we can actually step back and move away from it, then we might actually be able to make a change. But this coronavirus is very telling for what's going to happen in the future with regards to restriction on travel, restriction on even moving throughout one's own country. So there's a lot that's going on in the world right now, and there's a lot that we should be paying attention to, but we should be present with ourselves, understand where fear comes from, what it is, and we can actually be free of it. We can be free of all fear if we truly go into that question, and we can actually look at fear for what it is, the whole movement of fear, and what that creates in our own lives and in society. Because there's not going to be a savior, there's not going to be a leader, there's not going to be a guru that's going to fix everything and save everybody. Even though the mass majority of people will be begging for that. But the very security that they seek is totally destroyed by fear, and coming about security through a state of fear. That alone completely destroys all freedom and all security, which is crazy to look at when you see, because the security people seek is actually insecurity. Wild. But can people see this, or will people just hear this stuff and they may see it for a second, and then the mind chatter begins again, and we get lost in concepts, ideals, and all the nonsense that occupies our minds. So we'll see what happens over the next few weeks. Glad to be here down in Ecuador bringing you this video. I hope everyone is okay, and stay present with yourself, stay present with your feelings and emotions, and see what that will allow you to discover about yourself. Try and be still. Maybe this is what this is all about for some people, is putting you in an environment where you can actually be still for a moment and not always be looking for the next thing to do, the next pleasure to attain, the next thing to have, because none of that stuff actually matters. So take care, everybody, and we'll talk again really soon. Thank you, and goodbye.